Alright guys, so today I want to freestyle the history of World of Warcraft. I'm only going to probably go so far. We'll see. I'll tackle the things I find relevant, but they will be the most major events that I can remember, think of, and I guess to a degree look up. But I ultimately want to tackle this question because I think it's, like, obvious, but for some reason it has to be said. But anyway, what's the question? The question is this: is the Horde morally gray in World of Warcraft? And perhaps in some ways, more importantly, is it comparable to the Alliance to any varying degree? I think the last one is probably the most important one, because you have a lot of people in the world that love to do the whataboutisms. Like, well, what about when the Alliance did that? And what about when this guy did that over here, and this gnome murdered that orc? No. Okay, listen. Let's actually compare it if we want to get real about it for a second. So, I'm going to start chronologically. That's how I'm going to be doing this video. I want to go from, let's just say, the beginning of Warcraft 3. I'll give a little bit of a prelude to what happens before that, because it really does set it all up, and it should change your opinion immediately, but we'll see. And then we'll make our way all the way to, I guess, the modern day, probably covering less of what happens post-Legion, because WoW gets really interesting, and I don't know if that's good or bad post-Legion, but that middle part when World of Warcraft first starts all the way up to, like, the Cataclysm, Garrosh, Mists of Pandaria era, that's very, very important, and really it answers the question in many ways right then and there. Almost nothing can make up for it at that point. Okay, so you'll get my opinion throughout this as well, so I hope you guys enjoy, and let's just get into it. Is the Horde morally gray in World of Warcraft? Let's start from the beginning.
The once mighty army of Azeroth lay among the blackened and charred remains of Stormwind Keep. Those that escaped fled across the Great Sea, bringing tales of the suffering they had faced at the hands of the Orcish hordes. Eager to engage in battle once again, the Orcs constructed ships of war to bear them across the Great Sea. The Orcish warriors yearned for the sounds of battle to fill the air, and looked to the far horizon for new blood to spill.
To me, this is just so damning. I literally laughed out loud. I couldn't freaking handle myself. Look, it starts off in Warcraft 2 with the Orcs being brought to this planet from none other than Medivh himself, who opens a portal, right, as he is being corrupted at that moment by somebody far greater than even he. And as the Orcs are pouring across the dark portal into a brand new world, the first thing they obviously do is they start raping and pillaging and killing literally every single thing they can possibly find. Specifically, the first major kingdom they come into contact with, which is the Kingdom of Stormwind. At this precise moment, I want you to imagine that you are a human, as you are probably. I mean, there could be an alien watching, but let's pretend you're a human. And you're sitting there for a moment in the city of Stormwind, or the surrounding countryside of Goldshire, of Brightwood at the time, of Lakeshire, and out of nowhere, giant green, almost looking like men-type beasts come out of nowhere with axes, half naked, and they are clearly going to kill you. They are literally infused with demon blood, and they start killing everything. Pillaging, burning, and destroying everything. And quite frankly, if I could be honest with you guys, I could never in my life fault a single human being for being racist towards an orc, because they're a different species, right? This is not like human racism, okay? We don't have to talk about that. This is real, okay? These are different races. This is actually real. At that precise moment, it's like, could you actually fault a guy for hating crocodiles if he was like watching his mother walk next to a river one day and his mother got killed by one and there was nothing he could do? No, you would not. And quite frankly, I wouldn't at all. I would think to myself, of course you hate crocodiles. You'll always hate them. You'll always stay away from them. And if you see one in a place it shouldn't be, you'll probably make sure it's never there again. It's a whole different thing when it's a truly different species. A whole different thing that doesn't care about you. You're a human. You're minding your own business. The world of Azeroth is already a tough world to be in. You have gnolls. You had the gnoll wars prior to this. These are dog men that are literally trying to kill you and your babies. Little Timmy, his ancestors, right? They barely make it out alive. And then what occurs? Something that literally should not be here because it's from a different planet and they're literally only here to kill you. Now, I know what you are thinking right now, but Mcdoubles, these orcs are corrupted by demons. It's not actually their choice. Wrong! No, look, you made that choice. The orcs made the choice to be corrupted by demons. You could say they're low IQ, you could say they were manipulated in some way, so it's not entirely their fault. I would argue you're wrong for both, and here's why. Let me give you a subtle, not perfect one-to-one example, but it is something that will work, and it also gives you a one-to-one for a real-life example there, so you might actually be able to better connect with it. Let's pretend you're driving a car. You're minding your own business, and suddenly you hit somebody. You didn't mean to, but you hit another human being, and let's say you killed that human being. You're in trouble. You did a wrong thing. You didn't mean to do it. You didn't want them to die. There's no part of you that was possibly ever evil in your entire life. You didn't make the choice to kill them. It just happened to be that you ran into them and you killed them. Maybe it was just an accident in that regard. Maybe you're actually just kind of stupid. Maybe you're low IQ yourself. Maybe you're a bad driver. I mean, there's a plethora of, personal reasons as to why you hit them, but let's pretend none of them are malicious and you didn't make the actual conscious decision to do it. You feel bad about it even because you know it was wrong, but you're still in trouble. You'll still pay in the way that whatever government you happen to be under decides that you will pay. But there's a fundamental difference between that and the decision that you make when you actively say to yourself, I am going to run over that person right there and kill them. Okay? I am going to do it. I want it. It makes sense to me. It doesn't matter if somebody gives you $100, $1 million, they make a bet. It doesn't matter what it is. If you make the conscious decision that you're going to join in with somebody doing something evil or partake in something that would, equate to something that is evil, or again, to kill somebody, you are evil in that regard at that moment, if not forever, because you consciously chose to do it. This is huge because the orcs consciously choose to drink the blood of demons, to join with Gul'dan, to accept that power. And then yes, at that point, it might be too far gone, but the initial decision was made. And we know this is true because there are some orcs who chose not to. And they got shit on by the vast majority who were too stupid to make that same decision. To me, this innately means the orcs are very, very dumb, very, very innately evil in some regard, even if you don't want to say that's true, it definitely is. And just because there's, an actual existence of some that are not, doesn't preclude the fact that the vast majority are, right? There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And it's not like they're entirely out of their minds, as green orcs at least, when they're doing what they're doing. They have a semblance of what's going on. They definitely do. It's very obvious. You have to look at an orc like Thrall, for example, who is a green orc, who is tainted, but he's not completely out of his mind. He actually can control himself. When raised with the right morals and concepts behind his very being, he can actually be a good human, or an orc in this regard. But it's interesting when you put it that way, right? Because that's the point, I think, of the initial Warcraft 2 and World of Warcraft dichotomy, which is that the orcs are the antithesis of what it means to be man. What it means to be man is to have that concept of honor, of integrity, of literally of chivalry, of being able to be good, to see that nuance, to do the right thing. What it means to be orc is to unleash your primordial, primal side, something that all humans, all of you have in you right now, but something that because you are human, you are more capable of controlling. And we look down upon those in our society that are incapable of doing that adequately, let's just say. And many of them become criminals in that regard as well. And I think that this is very important when you're setting the stage for the entire concept of, is the Horde morally gray? Because we only talked about the orcs, but they have ogres on their side at this time. Ogres are obviously not morally gray. I don't even have to really do a video. That's a whole different video, I guess, but it's not even required because it's so obvious. They also group up with trolls, who are some of the least morally gray of all the races in Azeroth. They're pretty bad, bro. They are pretty bad, but we're going to focus on the orcs, and then we'll, lead up into some of the other races, I guess, as we go on. But I just wanted to give this little bit of a prelude to what's about to go down, because if you don't actually realize that all of Warcraft starts with the orcs being as evil as humanly possible, quite literally, I mean those words literally, and the humans just minding their own business, when suddenly, as if the world of Azeroth wasn't dangerous enough, these giant, green, angry, barbaric pseudo-humans come from a portal and start raping, pillaging, murdering, and driving you off of your lands. If you don't understand that, maybe, and I only mean maybe, you could believe the orcs are not actually that bad, but they are, and they always have been. And just because maybe 10 or 5 or 1% of them actually had a higher IQ maybe, or just weren't actually that stupid, and they stayed on, Draenor, and they barely survived in places like Nagrand, does not actually mean the majority of them were not beasts, evil, absolutely out of their mind, low IQ, easy to manipulate. There's a reason they were chosen by the Burning Legion outside of physical prowess. They were easy. And so anyway, that is the prelude. Now, let's begin with Warcraft 3. The true beginning of the morally gray concept for the Horde. And I think, to me, this says it all, but I'll show you guys this little bit of the prologue first, and see if you can figure it out for yourself.
The sands of time have run out, son of Duratan. The cries of war echo upon the winds. The remnants of the past scar the land. Which is besieged once again by conflict. Arise to challenge fate and lead their brethren to battle. As mortal armies rush blindly towards their doom, the burning shadow comes to consume us all. You must rally the Horde and lead your people to their destiny. Seek me out.
Honestly, one of the best games of all time, but it doesn't stop the fact that this is an interesting little way to make the orcs feel human. And how do they do that other than taking a man? I say a man, and this is very interesting wordage, and I don't use it lightly. They take an orc that was raised by men, who has been given a whole different personality by the very lieu of that, yet, and to a degree, still maintains what it means to be an orc. It's at this moment that you can truly see the extent that your average orc is probably capable of going to if they are going to not be considered brutal, bestial, evil types of humanoids to begin with. This is the only way that we're going to get people after Warcraft 2 and before to actually look at the orcs and say, maybe they're not so bad after all. Thrall wakes up from his sleep. He is being spoken to by Mcdoubles. Mcdoubles, the same person who ruined everything. Oh, he's always meddling, isn't he? But he wants to basically fix his past mistakes. He knows the Burning Legion is coming. He also knows there's only one way for the Burning Legion to be defeated because of everything that he's done prior to this that's ruined this world. And that, my friends, would be for all of the major playing races on the planet, and even some others from mercenary camps in the final battle, to join together and fight back against the Burning Legion as one cohesive unit rather than fighting against each other. How can he make this happen, though? Well, he has to get everybody out of the Eastern Kingdoms because he already already knows what's about to go down. Arthas is going to become the Lich King. The undead are about to ravage the major player of the northern part of the Eastern Kingdoms, which is the Kingdom of Lordaeron, and the second most major player, which is the Kingdom of Quel'Thalas. And so the only way that we can actually get this going is if all of the major players get on boats and go west to Kalimdor. So he goes to Thrall. Thrall is actually the only one who ends up listening of the true major players, and this is actually supposed to be a very pivotal point, because it shows us something about the Orcs in this moment by lieu of Thrall himself, which is that the Orcs are actually capable of some kind of higher intelligence. It might not be common among them, as I mentioned before. Only so many of them did not drink the demon blood. Only so many of them stayed behind, and only so many of them don't end up being literal beasts by the perception of, other races. However, some of them do. And that's a very interesting concept, and this is something they're trying to bring forth to you with Thrall. And I think Thrall ends up being almost all of our favorite characters, up until they ruin him, by my opinion, in Cataclysm. So Thrall is a super important figure here because he embodies two things. He embodies what it means to be the most honorable and highest virtue aspect of man, as well as what it means to be a true warrior who has tamed themselves and controlled their inner beast in order to become something greater than they could have been had they let themselves succumb to it. Thrall is the ultimate figure here, and that's what they try to present to us with the Orcish campaign. Everybody Thrall talks to, all of the orcs that he talks to in this regard, are all basic. They are all just basic in the regard that they want to kill the humans, they speak in a very dumb way. Even the highest up guy that he talks to, Grommash, he is just bloodthirsty, clearly out of his mind, clearly something with his personality is messed up, or he's not the smartest one in the haystack, right? And so you're getting this idea that Thrall is not really just an orc, even though he truly is. It's really interesting because of the way that he was raised, and this, again, it speaks to the intelligence that the orcs are capable of, even if it's not innate to them. And I think this is also speaking to that bestial primalness of what it means to be a human as well, and what we've actually gone past as the ages and the eons have gone on in the real world, right? Whereas maybe 30, 50, 60, 100,000 years ago, you might have seen humans that were much more likely to make you think of an orc, less likely to make you think of a modern man. And that's because of the times and the brutality of it, and how difficult it was to survive, and maybe might made right in some regards. But as time went on, man becomes something different, something to be revered because of their ability to understand reason, their ability to be logical, their ability to be kind and empathetic and honest and good, and to solve problems without killing. And it's not always perfect, and we always know this, though. We represent it in our societies, in our books, in our literature, in our poems. People who do horrible things are seen as lesser to some degree, and that's supposed to be kind of like a lesson to you in that regard. When you see people doing bad, and they're seen as bad people in that moment, and you say to yourself, okay, I never want to be like that person because they did this X bad thing, or Y bad thing, or Z bad thing. And what I think, this is the true moment where the orcs become pseudo-morally gray, where they really try to say, look, the orcs used to be this. Maybe it was all just because of the demon blood. Maybe it wasn't. Orcs are just innately bestial and bad, like I just tried to say. Thrall is the reason for you to think this. Thrall is Green Jesus. Thrall is the savior in this regard. Thrall is the major player, and he's not human. Thrall is the beginning of the morally gray arc. Does it succeed? Well, as we go through Warcraft 3, we get a lot of very interesting points that would make you think it would. When the orcs end up leaving the Eastern Kingdoms, Grommash, Thrall, and his bit of the Horde that he takes with him, which are not all of the orcs, by the way, they end up landing on an island in the Maelstrom. When they make it to that island, they notice they're being watched, and at that precise moment, they encounter the Darkspear Trolls, an exiled troll group who pretty much were considered evil. They were cannibals. They, as a result, they would eat other living things, including their own species. They practiced dark magics, and they literally just sat on this island by themselves, kind of being bad. However, the island was about to go astray. A volcano was going to erupt. They were going to be attacked by a sea witch, and it just so happened to be that Sen'jin, the leader of the Darkspear Trolls, and Thrall got along. The orcs helped the trolls with various little things on the island. The orcs also had a history of talking and intermingling with trolls. Not this species of trolls, but trolls nonetheless, and so there was already a subtle bit of kinship in that regard. And so what ends up happening is they band together to fight the humans who are also on this settlement, and they succeed in basically killing almost all of them until you get to a point towards the end of the story of the prologue where you basically realize every human on this island is essentially murdered with no way out, and orcs and troll alike could care less, which I find to be very interesting. Now, when this island blows up, Sen'jin does actually die prior to that, and all of the Darkspear trolls end up joining the side of Thrall. Thrall takes them under his wing. He makes them part of this new horde that he's creating. Now it's just orcs and blue trolls, and they continue on their way, successfully getting away from the Sea Witch on the island and make it to Kalimdor. Now, you might actually be wondering at this part of the story, like, where is Grommash? Are all of the orcs that are on those boats on this island with Thrall? The answer is no. Some of them actually crash on these random parts of Kalimdor all throughout the coast, and Thrall has to find them all, including Grommash.
War Chief, our ship sustained heavy damage when we passed through the raging maelstrom. It's unsalvageable.
I knew it. Can we confirm our location? Is this Kalimdor?
We traveled due west as you instructed. This should be
Now,
it.
during Thrall's journeys in Kalimdor, he encounters the Tauren.
I am Cairne, Chief of the Bloodhoof Tauren. You greenskins fight with both savagery and valor. I am intrigued. I am Thrall, and these are my brethren, the Orcs. We've come seeking the destiny promised to us.
Another misfit group, probably the only good group of people, I say people, but race, on the Horde to this day, who are being genocided by Centaur solely because the Centaur are quick, agile, and obviously half horse, and the Tauren are massive, cumbersome, and are not able to fend off their attacks effectively. The Orcs come, intensely agile, super strong, literal superhuman strength and agility in this regard. They start kicking the Centaur's ass, and then Cairne, one of the best humans of all time, I say human, but you know what I mean, he comes and joins Thrall. He gets his Tauren, he makes them join the Horde, and suddenly we have the first and the only, I would say, morally gray concept of a horde that has ever existed, which is when we had Thrall's orcs with the Darkspear trolls who had just sworn allegiance and were going to be giving up some of their disgusting ways, and the beautiful, beautiful Tauren led by Cairne Bloodhoof. God bless them. That was the only good horde that ever existed, in my honest opinion. It will change come World of Warcraft. Now, even though this horde is really good, Thrall is constantly trying to fight back his own species at this moment throughout the entirety of Warcraft 3, because at every moment that Thrall tries to teach his people to be good, tries to teach them to be honorable, tries to teach them to use their intelligence and make good decisions, he consistently realizes that bands of them, typically under Grommash Hellscream, are always going around murdering different groups of humans they find, killing different groups of other species out there, whether it's Quillboar or Centaur, massacring Night Elves throughout the campaign, literal genocide type stuff. And then to make it worse, when they get to Ashenvale and the Orcs start fighting the Night Elves actually have the upper hand. The Night Elves are superb fighters with extreme magical affinity and extreme agility and strength to their own fair degree as well. They're not actually doing very well in Ashenvale, the Orcs are. And so what do? Well, Grommash takes a large group of them. He gets literally once again manipulated and persuaded by a giant demon called Manaroth. He drinks the green evil fell blood of this demon. He gets all of his crewmates to do it, who all make a conscious decision. They're not being told they're going to be killed if they don't do it. They all choose to do it. And then Grommash and his orcs become Chaos Orcs, or Super Fell Orcs, basically. And then to make it worse, they slaughter all of the Night Elves, all of the Keepers of the Grove, all of the Dryads, all of the Druids, and, that are in that area at least, and then they kill Cenarius, the demigod himself, now that they are embroiled and imbued with this demonic magic that they got willingly. Once again, after everything that's happened, after everything Thrall's done, leading them with these new Hordish people throughout all of Kalimdor, and it's just the Orcs. Nobody else is with them in this. And when everybody else sees what happens, they're not with them in this. And Thrall is disgusted, and Grommash is shamed, and it is a horrible moment. And it makes you think, you know, it's like, no matter what Thrall tries to do, there's only so much he can do, because what is an Orc is something that's even deeper than just how you're raised. Thrall is not a special case where you could say, well, any Orc could have been raised the way that Thrall was and ended up the way that Thrall is, and that's just not true. I'm gonna take a little bit of a leap here real quick and just make you guys guys remember that the groups of orcs that chose not to drink demon blood were typically like what? The orcs that Thrall is literally part of the lineage of. And I think that's very interesting because the orcs were actually undergoing like rapid evolution from like the crazy things like Gruul all the way down from ogres and then all the way down to orcs. And if you gave them a million years or however long it takes in WoW, maybe they would have become something smaller and different and more human-like, but it wouldn't have been all of them. It would have been the ones like the Frostwolf clan, the one that came from the lineage of Thrall himself. This is actually very deep if you think about it lineage-wise as to why it's Thrall that is the one, because he is one of the only ones left from his type of lineage, and all of the ones you typically meet throughout all of the Orcish campaign that are intelligent are also descendants of that Frostwolf clan and stuff like that. So it's very, very, very interesting. I think what you're really seeing throughout Warcraft 3, and I think what the game is trying to tell you, and this is very interesting when you lead up into World of Warcraft itself, is that Thrall is a literal green Jesus. He is a literal phenom. Nobody could have done what Thrall did. There would have been no other orc even remotely capable of doing the things that Thrall ended up doing throughout the history of the Orcish campaign in Warcraft 3 in general. It had to be him, because the orcs are innately a certain way, as anything in any way in any species might be. And in this regard, they are warlike, they are barbaric, they are extremely aggressive, and they are not that smart. And so when tempted, they are easily manipulated, and they will always take power over anything else. Even if they are slightly more intelligent and capable of using magic, for example, they will always take the power route over anything else. This is very important, but we all hold on to Thrall, Green Jesus. We love him, and this leads us to World of Warcraft.
"4 years have passed since the mortal races banded together and stood united against the might of the Burning Legion. Though Azeroth was saved, the tenuous pact between the Horde and the Alliance has all but evaporated. The drums of war thunder once again.
you notice anything about that cinematic? First of all, it was badass, and you can kind of understand how if that's coming out in 2004, 2005, that everyone's shitting their pants, right? Thinking it's about to be the best game of all time, and it basically was. But the orc was savage. The orc was just literally a mindless, stupid beast. Every other race, even the undead to a weird degree, was depicted in a much better way. Even the undead is at least seen as, sure, evil as shit, but look, he's intelligent, he's magically based, he's summoning infernals, the night elves, the humans, the dwarves, the tauren, but then you see the orc, and it's a mindless beast. It didn't go away. It's always been this way. It is what the orcs are, and the only thing that makes anybody think otherwise is Thrall. It has always been. Now, everything we've gone over up until this point, in my opinion, shows that it's not necessarily that orcs are just like humans and that they could have been good the whole time and it's just unlucky. It really, to me, it shows that there's a reason the Burning Legion picked the orcs. There's a reason that Thrall is the only one that's really anything unique, that he's the phenom, right? He's coming from a lineage of highly intelligent, shamanistic-oriented orcs that were on a whole different path, segregated in many ways from the rest of the people on Draenor, people orcs once again, right? And when the Burning Legion came, it was just too late, and most of them get destroyed, some of them do get corrupted, most of them get killed, actually, and the rest of their brethren go to Azeroth to just be treated as vessels, as you might see, for demonic endeavors. And it's very, very sad, but at this point, despite everything in Blizzard's attempt to make the Horde seem morally gray, there has been nothing to really say that to us except for the sheer existence of Thrall himself. Everything that the orcs do and that the Horde does, outside of the Tauren admittedly, is just pure evil every step of the way. And even though I haven't been going over the Alliance because we're focusing on the Horde in this video, although I could do another video going over the Alliance on the same time frame, I would end up arguing that everything the Alliance ends up doing is entirely 100,000% retaliatory. It's just them responding to getting genocided and killed and having their planet invaded, and therefore they are justified in literally everything that they do. I mean, even when the prologue starts and they try to say, oh, the humans have the orcs in internment camps, that's so bad. Sure, yeah, it could have been bad. In different nuanced situations, internment camps are bad. In the real world, internment camps are bad. But let me ask you a question, my friends. If an alien species invaded your planet, killed your ancestors, and nearly genocided everything that you ever knew or could have loved, and you were born by the remnants of those who barely survived, would you care that that alien species, or what's left of it on your planet, was contained? I mean, it's actually surprising to me that the humans didn't just kill all of the orcs at all. I mean, they couldn't because, you know, plot armor, right? But it's one of those types of things. It's just different. Anyway, we end up getting into World of Warcraft, and things just take a nosedive, in my opinion, in the morally gray department at this very point.
Bound to the iron will of the tyrant Lich King, the vast undead armies of the Scourge seek to eradicate all life on Azeroth. Led by the Banshee Sylvanas Windrunner, a group of renegades broke away from the Scourge and freed themselves of the Lich King's domination. Known by some as the Forsaken, this group fights a constant battle, not only to retain its freedom from the Scourge, but also to slaughter those who would hunt them as monsters. With Sylvanas as their Banshee Queen, the Forsaken have built a dark stronghold beneath the ruins of Lordaeron's former capital city. This hidden Undercity forms a sprawling labyrinth that stretches beneath the haunted woods of the Tirisfal Glades. Though the very land is cursed, the zealous humans of the Scarlet Crusade still cling to their scattered holdings, obsessed with eradicating the undead and retaking their homeland. Convinced that the primitive races of the Horde can help them achieve victory over their enemies, the Forsaken have entered an alliance of convenience. Harboring no true loyalty for their new allies, they will go to any lengths to ensure their dark plans come to fruition. As one of the Forsaken, you must massacre any who pose a threat to the New Order, human, undead, or otherwise.
Now, I'm not going to get into the semantics of why what I'm about to talk about actually happened, because we all know that it happened for gameplay reasons, but because the gameplay becomes the lore, we have to point out the very first mistake that the Horde makes to cement the fact that they can never at any point be considered morally gray, is that they take the Forsaken in as part of the Horde. This is the fundamental, most direly awful decision they could ever make, and to me, it cements any hope that they could have ever had at being a good side that's just misunderstood. If the Horde had stayed Orcs, Tauren, and reformed Darkspear Trolls, and they had been good at the point of Gromash's death, and tried to do good in the world, and tried to form alliances, maybe not cut down Ashenvale, maybe try to work with the elves, maybe try to amend with the humans and rebuild all of Azeroth, that could have been the true future. And there could have been a cool story there, by the way. But instead, they take the Forsaken, and Thrall tries way too hard to appeal to the rest of the Orcs, who are clearly different from him. As he is constantly torn between the human side of him and the Orcish side of him, Thrall tries to be more like the Orcish side, and he appeals to the Orcs' inner sense of aggressiveness and barbarism, constantly basically making up excuses for the horrible things that various Orcs do. And unfortunately, this bleeds through into other domains. While the Trolls, for the most part, stay pretty good, the Tauren definitely do as well under Cairne, the Forsaken are constantly up to no good, and it just kind of perturbs me to wonder why Thrall would ever allow this to happen at literally any point. They are constantly, as you are doing the undead quest and you are playing an undead Forsaken and knowing what's going on with them, constantly plotting. They're not making it a secret. Everyone knows they're not really on the side of the Horde for the right reasons. They are completely evil. And then, just to speed up a bit, when you get to the point of Wrath, they betray everybody. They nearly kill everybody at the Wrath Gate. And yet, for some reason, Sylvanas gets away with this because we're going to pretend it's all Varimathras, and we're going to pretend that it's all with the apothecaries and stuff. And even though we all know that Sylvanas is batshit and everything goes horrible, literally a few expansions later, we're just going to pretend whatever. I mean, just to make a long story short, because the video is going to be long enough, you get series of events in World of Warcraft where the people that are a part of the Horde are consistently doing evil, and the people on the part of the Alliance are simply responding to evil. The Forsaken are innately evil. They should not exist, in my honest opinion. If the Forsaken existed in the real world, they would have been obliterated by now because it's just wrong. The Orcs are consistently doing bad in the world. The Tauren are putting up with it because they have a blood debt, and the same thing for the Trolls, and I really feel bad for those two races. They don't deserve it at this point, to be honest with you. And you have a small sect of intelligent Orcs, and they're basically led by Thrall, and the rest of them are basically complete and utter unbelievable savages that, you know, Thrall is trying his damnedest to keep together from doing more evil in this world. And then you have the Cataclysm. The Cataclysm is the worst thing that's ever happened for Thrall, and unfortunately Thrall's character arc does make sense here. He does start off as Green Jesus, but he's too empathetic towards his original kind, and he doesn't exactly know how to teach. He doesn't exactly know how to lead either, outside of battle and outside of what he knows on a basic level. So when things start to get a little bit more tame and it comes down to him having to lead Orgrimmar and lead his people, he consistently makes bad decisions and trusts the wrong people. It's actually a very depressing story for people who like Thrall. When we get to Cataclysm, they have to do something with him, so they turn him into Super Green Jesus, and they completely ruin his character arc. But to me, as a direct result of this, the worst thing that ever happened to literally once again, even though there's been many of these points already, but once again to cement the Horde as having absolutely no hope of being morally gray, is that Garrosh Hellscream, the son of Gromash, the literal thorn in the side of all of the Orcish race for all of Warcraft 3 that keeps damning them, his son becomes the leader of the Horde. We all know the story here if you're watching this video. Garrosh is racist towards other members of the Horde, despite all of the blood debts, despite all of the history. He only likes orcs. He is so much like his father. He is revengeful. He is barbaric. He is very, very narrow-minded. He is not actually very smart, but he is a true orc in this regard, and he is the new leader of the Horde. He nukes Theramore. He destroys it. There is no justification for that. Someone in my comment section, when I mentioned this a video ago, tried to tell me that there is justification for the nuking of Theramore because Varian could land, you know, attacks on Kalimdor using that city. And then I would say that's literally less of a reason to nuke Theramore than the Americans had to nuke Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Tsushima, it's actually insane. To think that that's a good reason to nuke Theramore. It was just Garrosh being batshit crazy. He was horrible, you know, and he got away with horrible, horrible stuff. So you have the Forsaken being evil. They become even more evil under Garrosh, by the way. They start bringing more people up from the dead and trying to repopulate their species solely for the sake of power, if you can call it a species. Garrosh massacring his own kind, being racist towards his own kind, only supporting the Orcs, killing off the Alliance any way he can, committing genocide, just being disgusting in every way. They go to Pandaria, he starts killing the Pandaren. He starts being horrible. He gets influenced by a Shah. They try to pretend like that's the only reason he was ever evil. It was not. It's just Orcs are extremely easy to manipulate. They're extremely low IQ, but they're intensely strong, and there's some weird potential in them. They're not quite completely fucked. It's like there's a crazy range of intelligence in Orcs themselves, and that's basically what I've been trying to say the whole time. And so he gets manipulated once again. He really does repeat the plight of his father, just with less heroism. And then we have what I believe is the very moment that the Horde fundamentally breaks down and isn't even a real faction to me anymore. They just kind of hold it all together for the sake of World of Warcraft. You get different leaders of the Horde that never, you know, come into any true fruition with things like Vol'jin, Bane. Cairne, by the way, does get murdered during Cataclysm, and it's through poison from his own Tauren kind, the evil Grim Totems. But Garrosh is a piece of shit, and even though he lost the 1v1, he has no honor, and he slays Cairne in the duel. So I had to throw that in real quick, because it's even more to say that it's like Orcs don't have innate honor. That was all Thrall, okay? Blood and honor, it's just blood. Thrall added the honor. It had to be Thrall. But anyway, you know, after Vol'jin, we end up getting, like, Sylvanas. You get the Sylvanas arc that goes into Shadowlands. It's not even WoW at that point, to be honest with you. But I think I've made my point. Every single thing the Orcs actually did was evil. I mean, almost everything. And the only time that the Orcs were actually good was when Thrall was ahead of them. And the only reason Thrall was good was because he was a part of a more intelligent lineage of Orcs. And then he was raised by humans who were very sophisticated at the time that he was being raised by them. And he was able to pick up from that and become something greater than anything that you could have ever expected from an Orc. He was the phenom. He was the reason that anybody thought the Orc was good at all. And now the Orc is no longer good. Therefore, the Horde is not morally gray. You know, I even believe that come Cataclysm, the trolls start practicing dark magics again on, you know, the Echo Isles. And really, it's just the Tauren that maintain any at all semblance of goodness. It's almost a genuine shame that they are on the Horde, to be honest with you, and it's only because of Thrall. There is no way the Tauren would have ever stayed with the Orcs had it not been that blood debt to Thrall, and that is where I want to end this, because I just want to say once again, the Horde is so far away from morally gray, it's disgusting that anybody could ever think otherwise. They are so innately evil, so morally black, if you want to call it that, if it's black, white, and gray. They're just bad. And so I definitely welcome you guys in the comment section to tell me why you think I'm wrong. But I promise you nothing you bring up will actually come to a conclusion in which you could honestly say that it makes up for all of the bad that the Horde, but specifically I say the Orcish Horde, the Orcs, have done. They are just bad, and I will only give leeway to the Tauren and subtle leeway to the Darkspear Trolls. I said subtle, but all of them, I mean, even if you want to get to the part where the Blood Elves join, the Blood Elves are pretty shit in many ways, but there's at least more justification to what they do compared to the Orcs, because they did just have their homeland, you know, genocided by undead, and otherwise they were kind of just minding their own business, so it's just kind of a whole different story. Please keep in mind, we're not even talking about the fact that the Orcs are literally responsible for the death of a planet which murdered and, you know, as a result, genocided a vast numerous amount of races, the destruction of the Draenei, and the literal rape and pillage and destroying of their cities. Like, there's so much horrible stuff when it comes to the Horde, every iteration of the Horde that's ever existed. We are even focusing mostly on the true Horde, the Orcish Horde that becomes what you can play in World of Warcraft, but there's other Hordes and they're all way worse, you know? The Orcs in general are the crux of it all. I think they are just really, really stupid and therefore easy to manipulate and therefore nearly analogous with being evil innately. But overall, I feel like there are no good arguments for otherwise. The Horde is not morally gray, only Thrall was morally gray. He tried his best, but most of the races within the Horde seem to be similar in IQ to like a preteen human, which, you know, we all did really stupid stuff when we were preteens, and I can guarantee you, if we stayed preteen intelligence our whole lives, there was no way that we would actually be where we are today as a society. And to me, that says it all. Like, it explains it. Anyway, that's going to be the end of it. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like and a subscribe. Major thanks to all the members on my channel channel. Love and appreciate you guys. If you want to see other videos like this, maybe one where we go over the Alliance, are they morally gray? I think yes, but I guess I could be proven wrong. But let me know in the comment section below. Anyway, love and appreciate all of you guys, though. See you in the next one. Mcdoubles out.